Among the great engines of the past, few carry a history filled with bold milestones, narrow escapes, and a legacy that refuses to fade. One machine kept finding its way back to the rails, surprising every generation that thought it had seen the last of it. Its legend only grew with time. Now the spotlight turns to the Flying Scotsman, a steam icon that never allowed its story to end. When the history of steam power is discussed, one locomotive always rises above the rest, not because it was the biggest or the newest, but because its story carried an energy that refused to fade with time. Engineers shaped many remarkable machines during the great age of steam, yet few held a presence strong enough to survive changing eras, shifting technology, and the disappearance of the world that created them. The Flying Scotsman stands in a category of its own, a locomotive built from a vision that would continue far beyond the expectations of the people who first watched it roll out of the workshops in the early 1920s. Its beginning was far more unglamorous than the legacy it would eventually earn. Instead of receiving a famous name right from the start, it entered the world as a numbered machine with a price that reflected the ambition behind it. That figure spoke loudly for its time, since railways rarely invested so heavily in a single locomotive, and this alone hinted at the purpose it was meant to fulfill. The locomotive belonged to the powerful A1 class, engines designed to conquer the toughest express routes that linked major cities across Britain. These trains formed the backbone of travel, and their performance shaped the country's understanding of speed, reliability, and modern engineering. The Flying Scotsman embodied the philosophy behind the entire A1 class. Its size and proportions immediately set it apart. Stretching close to 70 feet and carrying nearly 100 tons on its frames, the locomotive balanced strength with a kind of confidence that became part of its identity. The 462 wheel arrangement, known as the Pacific configuration, allowed it to glide at high speeds while remaining steady through long-distance journeys. 4 pilot wheels directed the locomotive into curves with smooth control. 6 large driving wheels provided the power needed for fast running, and the trailing wheels supported a firebox large enough to feed an engine built for serious performance. Inside its frames worked 3 cylinders, 2 mounted on the outside and 1 placed between them. This layout delivered both strength and efficiency, giving the locomotive a reputation for steady acceleration and impressive endurance. A boiler pressure of 220 pounds per square inch allowed the Scotsman to produce a tractive effort that gave it the ability to haul heavy express trains with remarkable consistency. These qualities made the locomotive far more than a showpiece. It was a machine created for demanding work, and its early years on Britain's rail network proved that it could handle every task put before it. Its transformation from a numbered locomotive into a national symbol began in 1924, when it finally received the name that would echo across the world. The title came from the famous express service connecting London and Edinburgh, a journey that had long captured the public's imagination. With the name came a new number, and from that moment, the locomotive's role expanded beyond the duties of daily service. The LNER saw it as a representation of everything the company wanted to be known for. They displayed it proudly at the British Empire exhibition in Wembley, where enormous crowds gathered to see it up close. What they saw was more than steel and paint. They saw a machine that reflected a country's industrial pride. Those exhibitions gave the locomotive recognition, but the real turning point arrived in 1928. The railway aimed to prove that modern steam locomotives could deliver consistent, high-speed travel over long distances, and they set their sights on the nearly 400-mile stretch between London and Edinburgh. Completing that journey without stopping was considered extremely difficult for a steam engine. Coal and water disappeared quickly at high speed, and replacing the crew mid-journey normally required a halt. Engineers introduced the corridor tender, a remarkable solution that placed a narrow passage inside the tender so that crew members could move between the locomotive and train while traveling at speed. This innovation made the non-stop journey possible. On the first day of May in 1928, the Flying Scotsman completed the run in a little over 8 hours. Water was taken on through troughs installed between the rails, a technique that allowed the locomotive to continue at full pace. The achievement displayed a new level of confidence in British engineering. It demonstrated that steam power, when designed with precision and ambition, could meet the demands of long-distance express travel in ways previously thought impossible. A few years later, the locomotive reached a milestone that secured its place in world history. On the 30th of November in 1934, while running near Stoke Bank during tests, the locomotive achieved a speed that no steam engine had officially reached before. The indicator climbed past 100 miles per hour, marking the first authenticated moment a steam locomotive reached that territory. At a time when rail travel faced competition from motorcars and aircraft, this event delivered a powerful message. Steam power still commanded a place in the modern world, and the Flying Scotsman stood at the center of that proof. Newspapers celebrated the event, photographers captured the moment, and the locomotive became a national sensation. As the decades progressed, the locomotive underwent a series of developments to keep pace with evolving technology. When British Railways took control after the nationalization of the rail system, they continued improving the A1 class. Between the late 1920s and the late 1940s, many of these engines were rebuilt into the A3 class. This transformation brought extensive mechanical upgrades. The boiler design changed, heating surfaces increased, and the superheater area expanded dramatically, giving the locomotive improved efficiency and stronger overall performance. The Flying Scotsman benefited greatly from these improvements. Its tractive effort increased, allowing it to pull heavier loads with ease, and its capabilities on long-distance routes became even more impressive. By the time the locomotive left regular service in 1963, it had accumulated more than 2 million miles. Few steam locomotives in history matched that level of endurance. Yet retirement created an unexpected challenge. The era of steam had ended in Britain, and many locomotives were scrapped without hesitation. The Flying Scotsman faced the same threat. Despite its fame, the possibility of losing it was very real. Many beloved engines had already vanished from the network by that point, and preservation efforts often struggled to save even the most historically important machines. What kept the Flying Scotsman alive was the determination of people who refused to watch such an iconic locomotive disappear. A series of private owners stepped in to rescue it, each one facing the challenge of maintaining a machine that required immense resources to keep running. Their efforts ensured the locomotive survived long enough to reach a new chapter under the care of the National Railway Museum, which acquired it in 2004. That acquisition marked the beginning of one of the most complex restoration projects ever attempted on a steam locomotive. Restoring the Flying Scotsman meant returning it to a state where it could operate on modern main lines, an environment far more demanding than anything it had faced during its original career. The work began in 2006 and stretched across a decade. It involved rebuilding nearly every major part of the locomotive. A new boiler was constructed along with a new firebox and smoke box, and the chassis required significant renewal. The cost reached several £1 million, reflecting both the complexity of the task and the effort to maintain historical authenticity. Restorers aimed to preserve the character of the original locomotive while giving it the strength required to run safely in a world shaped by entirely different engineering standards. When the Flying Scotsman steamed again in 2016, crowds gathered along the railway lines, many waiting for hours to witness its return. The sight of steam pouring into the sky and wheels beginning to turn felt like watching a piece of the past awaken. That moment confirmed why the locomotive mattered so deeply to so many people. It represented an era of discovery, craftsmanship, and ambition, and seeing it move again connected history to the present in a way no static exhibit ever could. Its post-retirement adventures expanded its legend even further. A major highlight came during its North American tour in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Running in the United States required a range of modifications, The locomotive received a cowcatcher, an American bell, new couplers, an American-style whistle, and updated brake systems. Regulations made the tour difficult, but the locomotive managed to complete extensive miles, attracting large crowds across the continent. Its journey showed that admiration for steam extended far beyond Britain. An even more remarkable achievement came during its Australian tour in 1988 and 1989. Covering tens of thousands of miles, the locomotive completed the longest non-stop run ever recorded by a steam engine, covering more than 400 miles in one stretch. It also became the first standard gauge steam locomotive to reach Alice Springs, earning a place not only in railway history, but in the cultural memory of an entire country. These journeys transformed the Flying Scotsman into a global ambassador for the age of steam. Today, the locomotive continues to operate as a working museum piece, appearing on special excursions and drawing tremendous attention wherever it runs. Generations of railway fans have grown up hearing its story, and new audiences continue to discover it. The Flying Scotsman stands as a reminder of how far steam technology advanced and how the people who built and preserved it shaped a legacy that continues to inspire. For nearly a century, it has remained the world's most recognized steam locomotive, celebrated for its speed, endurance, and ability to cross nations with a sense of purpose that never seemed to fade. It belongs to a rare class of machines that carry both history and personality, where engineering achievement and cultural impact meet with remarkable harmony. And even with all that it has accomplished, the fascination surrounding it has never drifted away. So what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear Flying Scotsman, its 100 miles per hour record, or its globe-spanning adventures?